This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao. A gift from Italy to your home. San Pellegrino Ciao is a flavored sparkling water made with real fruit juice, finished with a pinch of Sicilian salt for a perfectly balanced taste. So which flavor will you choose? Peach, lime, blood orange, cherry, or maybe the all-new limoncello? Crafted in Italy with 0 grams of added sugar. San Pellegrino Ciao. Buy it now.
Good morning, it's Monday, August 3, and this is the Brussels Playbook podcast. The vibe in Brussels today is agitated as the crisis in Ceuta fuels outrage across the bloc, predominantly aimed at Spanish PM Pedro Sánchez. Now the EU is to hold an emergency meeting of interior ministers tomorrow to figure out the next steps. Also on the pod, Europe's watchdog warns that growing global crises can't become an excuse for secrecy in the EU institutions. And French President Emmanuel Macron's team is looking for Saudi funding for a manga theme park near Paris. I'm Zoya Sheftalovich, and with me today is Senior EU Politics Editor Ian Wishart. Hey Ian.
Good morning, Zoya. Another week of quiet Brussels.
Is it, Ian? Because instead of quiet Brussels, what we're getting is emergency crisis Brussels.
Yeah, quiet out on the streets, busy behind the scenes in the political corridors, I think.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it, Ian, because today the EU's 27 ambassadors are going to be called in for an urgent video conference meeting, and they're going to be discussing this Ceuta migrant crisis. This is the thing that happened last week where between Thursday and Friday, something like 50,000 migrants managed to make it from Morocco into this Spanish exclave called Ceuta.
I think as much as anything, before we go on, the main thing to remember is whatever the political backlash here, the thing to remember is that, by last count, 72 people lost their lives trying to storm this border. And that's something we should remember, whatever lay behind the reasons for it. And people have different views on it. I think it's worth remembering that so many people got killed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think people by now are pretty familiar with what happened. So there was this big rush of migrants who were trying to cross the border. No one really knows even now what caused it, why there was such an immediate influx. It's very hard to figure out the causes. The EU is trying. There is an investigation in play.
You rang around a lot of diplomats on Friday and over the weekend. What sense did you get of sort of the mood about this?
So I was speaking with loads of people from different countries, and it was really interesting. So when I was speaking with the Spanish Interior Ministry sources that I've got, they were saying, look, we think that this might have happened because there was this ruling that came through from the Spanish Supreme Court, basically confirming an earlier ruling that said that if you are a migrant and you come into Ceuta and you don't cross a physical boundary, then you can't be deported using the same express mechanism that if, say, you stormed the fence, you would be deported using an express mechanism. So there is this theory in Madrid at the moment that migrant smugglers, people smugglers, kind of hooked into this ruling and used it to spread the word that it was going to be easier to get to Spain if you went through the sea or did the last little stretch through the sea. It spread like wildfire through WhatsApp groups and Facebook and so forth, and that's why. But when you talk to other people, particularly people who have a harder line on migration in Europe, so people like the Danes and people...
Italians, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. When you talk with those people, they say, look, we think that the problem is that Pedro Sánchez this year announced this amnesty where he was going to be regularizing a certain number of migrants. It ended up being over 1 million who ended up applying for this system. And basically it meant that people who were previously undocumented were given documents and allowed to kind of stay officially in Spain. The Spanish say that's absolutely not what happened because they say, look, firstly, you had to apply for this thing in April. So we're well beyond that period now. And secondly, it was specifically for people who were already there. So it's not like you could just come and claim it. So they're saying, no, it wasn't that. It was something else. But I think where we've got to right now, and I've been speaking with people right up until this moment, I'm exchanging text messages with diplomats from all sorts of places. There have been meetings over the weekend of the ICPR, which is this emergency response mechanism, and no one really knows what happened.
There was a very strongly worded letter that came from 22 leaders over the weekend, and it was sort of on the back of that the meeting tomorrow is happening, the online meeting of the interior ministers.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So today, this is the ambassadors are all meeting on VTC over video. Tomorrow, it's going to be interior ministers. This is called the Justice and Home Affairs Council, is that grouping of ministers.
Yeah, and Sanchez was quite strong in what he said back as well, and he's talking about fake news. There's obviously something bigger going on here at how a lot of the rest of the EU sees the Spanish government, sees Sanchez, and it's almost like it's been waiting to something has been waiting to happen for them to fall out with Sanchez.
Yeah, and I think there's been a pattern of behavior where Sanchez has been the odd man out on a few different policies. So he's seen as being much softer when it comes to defense and security. Spain is one of the laggards of NATO when it comes to
and
defense
his stance
spending.
on Gaza as well has been diametrically opposed to a lot of the other leaders.
Indeed.
So I would say the anger with Spain within the EU right now is palpable. It's not just because of this, but this is perhaps the thing that's sort of broken the camel's back.
And they were furious when this regularization of migrants happened. You know, the EU's consensus on migration has been shifting much, much to the right of where it was before.
Well, when you see these pictures on the news, pictures on social media going around the world, it also offers right-wing governments an excuse, actually, to say, look at what could happen if we have lax border laws. And it's not a surprise that some of the first people to criticize Spain for this was the Italian Prime Minister, was Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader in France.
And this is the thing, it really adds credence to this kind of far-right wave that we're seeing. But in any case, what I think is striking is, so you mentioned this letter sent by 22 EU leaders basically criticizing Pedro Sanchez and essentially saying, look, this is your fault because you've been so soft on migration. The only people who didn't sign up to that letter were France, Ireland, Luxembourg, and Portugal. That's it. So Sanchez is really isolated in the EU now.
And this even with the fact that nearly everybody who stormed the border have now returned to Morocco.
Yeah, and the other thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that the migrants had nowhere to go from Ceuta. So there is no way for them to end up in mainland Europe because this is an exclave. It's not connected to the European continent. And even though Spain is obviously part of the Schengen zone, Ceuta and also Melilla, which is the other kind of exclave that's similar in its status, people who arrive there do get checked if they want to cross into the EU proper, onto the mainland European continent. So this was kind of a big fuss that was made out of something that is unlikely to have affected mainland Europe. Right, well, Ian, the second story we've got today, it comes from our colleague Sheftalovich, who is one of our last people standing in the Brussels team. He and I are basically the only two still working away, beavering away, and he's writing the Brussels playbook this week. And he has interviewed, very interestingly, the European Ombudsman Teresa Anjinho.
She's criticised the European Commission to some extent, saying that even though it's clearly dealing with a lot of huge crises around the world, that shouldn't be an excuse for not being transparent and not being open in their communications and their transactions.
Yeah, and the thing that she's really honed in on is this access to documents situation that's happening at the moment. So under EU law, if you're an average citizen or a journalist, you can request access to EU documents, and you, as long as those documents aren't like, top secret or whatever, you should be able to get them. But the EU has been knocking back, so the European Commission and other institutions have been knocking back these requests quite frequently. And so the Ombudswoman, she said, well, it's too frequently happening that people are being knocked back. And then over 30% of complaints that she said she receives are about transparency when it comes to access to documents and people getting knocked back when they want to get something.
We cannot allow to have accountability-free zones, she said.
Indeed, she did.
You've come across this because you've tried to get access to documents, haven't you? And it's not been as straightforward as perhaps transparency campaigners think it should be.
Yeah, like in theory, you're supposed to be able to get them within 15 days. They're meant to sort of give you everything, and as long as it's not, something that's very top secret or affects individual people. I have found that when you put in an access to document request, they delay, they sort of start and stop the clock all the time. And in the end, you might get something, but then it's either redacted to the bejesus, and so you can barely make sense of it.
To the what?
To the bejesus.
Right.
Yeah. Or even worse than that, you basically get told, oh, no, sorry, you can't have it, even though you've just spent, 3 months waiting for this thing and going back and forth with questions and answers.
She actually says the rules for access to documents in the EU are a sign of structural dysfunction and unfit for the 21st century. So that's quite strong what she's saying.
It is. And so people might remember Emily O'Reilly was the predecessor, and she was really kind of harsh and strong on the Ursula von der Leyen Commission. So particularly when it comes to the Pfizergate saga, if you recall, this was this exchange of text messages at the height of the COVID crisis between Ursula von der Leyen and the boss of Pfizer over a vaccine contract. And the New York Times wanted to get access to those text messages, and the Commission said, look, they're ephemeral, we don't have them, they don't exist, it's gone.
Well, in the interview with Seb, Anjinho said she didn't use Ursula von der Leyen's name, but she did say that the European Commission's opacity was a threat to the EU itself. She said, we need to be faithful to the treaties, abide by the principles and values. It what guarantees the survival of the project and the survival of the institution. So you can see why she thinks that transparency is such an important thing when you've got this hulking bureaucracy doing so many things every day. And the need to keep the public informed about what it's doing is at the heart of that. And that's good for journalists as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Actually, if folks out there in the world want to write in, if you could get an access to documents requests,
what would you really like to know?
Yes, what would you like to know? This is a fun one because I might get some ideas here and I might send some in. So if you've got a good one.
What would you really like to know?
Ooh, I'd like to know what everyone is paid.
Yeah.
I just want to know how much we pay literally every single bureaucrat. So that's my one. What's yours?
I'd like to see the notes that spokespeople and press officers say to each other when they get a request from a journalist.
That pesky Zoya again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Ian, do you like manga or anime?
What?
Are you telling me you've never watched an anime series?
The cartoons are for children, I think.
Oh my God. Listeners out there, please ignore Ian's ignorant take. Well, I am a big fan. It will surprise no one. You know what? I think you should go out there and watch...
Tom and Jerry.
No, Cowboy Bebop. Start with Cowboy Bebop and work your way up.
What's that then?
Oh, it's an excellent anime. I think it's on Netflix and it's really, really good. It's like Cowboy Noir.
I haven't got Netflix.
Oh my God, Ian.
Anyway, why are we talking about this?
Because did you know that in France, there might be a brand new theme park that's themed around Dragon Ball?
Dragon Ball being...
It is a manga series. It's phenomenal. It's one of probably the top manga series. It's spawned all sorts of other manga. Have you not heard of Dragon Ball Z?
No.
Oh my God.
A manga has got nothing to do with MAGA.
Oh my sweet baby Jesus. So a manga is the really cool Japanese cartoons that people flick through and read and stuff. And anime are the animated shows or movies of, kind of Japanese characters and so forth.
And there's going to be a theme park in France.
There's going to be a theme park in France, potentially. So our colleague Paul de Valampont has got his hands on some super interesting top secret information, basically showing that the French are trying to get Saudi investors to essentially fund this manga theme park. Manga's really popular in France.
It's popular in France, so they think that's going to get in the punters.
Yeah, exactly. And basically what they want to do is there's this defunct theme park that's been closed for decades. Mirapolis, exactly.
Yeah, near Paris.
Yeah, and it's been sitting empty, absolutely gathering dust this whole time. And basically...
Since when? When did it close?
I think
1991.
It closed in 91, yeah. It was only open for a few years. A lot of money went into it, but then it closed because basically Euro Disney opened and people were just not interested in this Mirapolis thing. So they want to reopen it and they want it to be Dragon Ball themed because that is probably the most popular manga or one of the most popular manga and anime sort of franchises there is.
People are going to worry about Saudi money pouring into Europe though, aren't they? This is the political aspect of this. What deals are being done between, which governments around Europe and the Middle East? Yeah,
absolutely. And, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, he has notoriously rekindled the relationship with Mohammed bin Salman. This is the Saudi crown prince, and has been courting investment from the Saudis. This investment, we've learned, comes from the Qiddiya Investment Company, which is kind of at the center of these negotiations. And the parties who Paul spoke with said the deal could exceed €1 billion.
Well then, let's see if this comes to fruition, but I won't be going.
I probably would, if I'm being honest. Folks, we spoke about birds versus famous people on the EU's banknotes the other day. And Mark from France is
I can't believe I missed that one.
Mark from France wants to know why no one is talking about the fact that the birds are clearly a way to shoehorn the ugly EU institution buildings to the other side of the notes. Nobody really wants those ugly buildings, right? He says, I want the buildings. I like them.
Well, the buildings don't offend anyone, so birds might.
We also, last week, spoke about bacteria in chickens that's causing diarrhea. There's another one you missed. And we've got one listener who's written in with a personal experience.
Oh, please no.
So this person says, I went on a trip to Romania in March and came back with a bad case of dysentery. Dysentery caused by Campylobacter.
What's that?
It's the bacteria on chicken that causes dysentery, apparently.
Right.
I thought that was a 16th century disease, and so does this listener, but apparently not. Well, suffice to say that this poor listener, who's suffering from 16th century diseases, felt quite seen in our episode. Well, that's about it from us today, Ian.
We'll be back tomorrow, though, won't we?
We absolutely will be. Folks, don't forget to rate us, review us, share us with your friends. This is a good time. You've probably got nothing going on in your life. May as well listen to the back catalogue of our greatest hits. Learn about diarrhea causing bacteria and Ian's absolute ignorance about popular culture.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.